leading by example at its truest form. Is like you as the leader have to be somebody who's done it. You have to, not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. So everything that I ask anyone on my team, I have to have done it first competently. I have to have paved the way so they can then find their way. So I'll never ask anybody to do something that I wouldn't have already done or wouldn't be willing to do in that moment. And them seeing you be able to come in every day, work the long hours, do what is required to make their job a little bit easier or provide a little more insight or be able to do it with them and not just put the full brunt and workload on somebody and like full delegation of the task, I think has really bred a really good environment in our businesses.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we're going to look at building trust, but we're going to do it through leading by example. Got a little tongue-tied there, but I want to make sure that you understand that building trust isn't just about, giving trust away, but it's about you being in alignment with who you are, walking the walk. And just, it really is about you leading by example. And so we talk about that today with Dylan Rich. He is the CEO of Automated Revenue. They are a B2B sales training, sales coaching. They really help companies in the B2B world hire that first SDR or maybe the second or third SDR and train them and coach them and get them up to ramp, which is at performance level. And we don't talk about the business side of what he's doing today because that's not what we do here. We talk about his principles of leadership. And he talked about building trust requires you to lead by example. And we walk through that, we dissect it, unpacked it, and it really is an exciting conversation because I believe leading by example is such an important thing that a lot of people say, but they're not doing it quite as well. I had a client of mine that showed up late to a lot of meetings. He didn't realize that he was showing up late. And so he thought it was just kind of, he was running fast and he was coming from meeting to meeting. And I had to ask him, what is he saying to others when he shows up late? And it was a blind spot. I won't say who that was inside of my role of clients because of confidentiality, but you get the idea that sometimes we have blind spots and we're not leading by example the way we should be. And if you want to build trust, we've got to lead by example. My job is to help you grow your company, grow yourself, and become an extraordinary leader. My mission is really to create extraordinary leadership that allows others to change the world. And I really am driven to do this. We have executive coaching. We have leadership development programs where we turn managers into leaders. And the first place to start with us, if you're curious, is something I call the Leadership Effectiveness Evaluation. Inside that process is a custom for you, 7 dials, you get mapped, you get to codify where you as an organization are from a leadership standpoint, and you get clarity around where you're doing well, and you get clarity around what's missing. And inside that, if you're listening to this podcast, it's absolutely free. It's customized with me. You're sitting down talking with me. I've got more than 10 years of experience with fast growth companies, hundreds of companies that we've helped grow, and I want to help you too. So if you're curious about the Leadership Effectiveness Evaluation, just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call. The real benefit behind it is knowing what to do next from that call, and we'll discuss it. I don't need to sell you anything, but if I can help you and serve you through this conversation, just let me know. And it's absolutely free if you're listening to a podcast. Just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call today. Now, here's the interview with Rich. Dylan, how are you?
I'm doing well. Good to be here, Gene.
We're going to have a great conversation about leading by example, what that really means, how we do it, why we do it. Most people understand those words. But before we get there, Dylan, tell us about Automated Revenue.
Yeah. So Automated Revenue is the B2B side of our business. We also have the SDR Whisperer, which is our B2C side of the business. So essentially what we do in our foundation is sales training and sales coaching. So individuals self-invest into the SDR Whisperer. That is a 2 to 6 month training program, really breeding cold callers, phone sales individuals. So they go through our training course and program. It's got course material. It's got 4 weekly coaching calls, community aspect. Once individuals go through and graduate, quote unquote, the program, then we work with businesses to help facilitate the hiring of our trained students and graduates so they can come into a business. They can, call their CRM. They can call people who come in from ads or whatever client acquisition channels you have those qualifying conversations and essentially tee up qualified appointments for businesses.
Well, it's definitely needed. I talked to a lot of companies that are struggling in this area. So I think that what you guys are doing, you're catching a wave with companies. For some reason, B2B, it seems like marketing is a lot harder. I don't know what it's like out there for other people, but I know getting people to pay attention in the B2B world when you're selling to CEOs or really busy people, it's much more difficult than younger entrepreneurs that are new into business. But I am curious about something, Dylan. Working in sales, working in this new thing, what are your thoughts about how AI is going to impact sales over the next 3 years?
I get this question a lot. So the nice thing about what we do is we're phone sellers, right? With how AI is going, email copywriting, marketing copy, ad copy, creative, even imagery now is being affected by AI. So those areas of sales will probably be very affected, but I really don't see artificial intelligence really replicating a human-to-human phone or even Zoom conversation. So it's kind of a selling point for us is that AI is going to take a lot of jobs or alter the job market. But one thing that's going to be very hard for AI to replicate is an actual human-to-human conversation. So it's kind of like an AI proof job, but obviously AI can help a lot in sales in regards to ideation, copywriting. We use it a lot for B2B clients in regards to like market sophistication, understanding pain points of a market. And like ChatGPT is really good at mapping out maybe some things to help with like writing a cold call script or writing email copy. But at the end of the day, I don't truly see it, at least for the near term, like replicating a phone conversation. So
I agree with you there. I will tell you, it's dangerously good in some areas where you're saying, here's what I would originally write it more concisely, or write it more compellingly, or write it like, it's really interesting. You can give it a tone. GPT is what I'm specifically talking about. I was playing around with it the other day. My son's a wrestler in high school, and they were going to raise some money, and I wrote out some couple of emails for family. I was like, make this better. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was so much better.
Yeah.
It was so much more, there was heart into it. And I was like, you wouldn't think that it could do that. So those people that are not looking at AI as it is impacting their business, I think they're missing an opportunity, because I do believe in sales that we should be leveraging the tools to maybe write emails a little bit shorter, a little bit more personalized.
Nice. Yeah.
And the tool can actually do things like that. You're still gonna have to come back and edit it. You're still gonna have to personalize it to a point to make it seem like it wasn't a template. Because that's one of my pet peeves inside of any kind of sales emails and whatnot. But Dylan, I appreciate you being here today. As much as I'm interested in B2B sales and SDRs and training and coaching that you do, this podcast really is more about the leadership principles that drive the company. So if you had to tell us and just back up and say, well, okay, these are the leadership principles that allow us to perform at our highest levels, what would you say they are?
I think the biggest one is leading by example. At its truest form. Is like, you as the leader have to be somebody who's done it. You have to, not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. So everything that I ask anyone on my team, I have to have done it first competently. I have to have paved the way so they can then find their way. So I'll never ask anybody to do something that I wouldn't have already done or wouldn't be willing to do in that moment. And them seeing you be able to come in every day, work the long hours, do what is required to make their job a little bit easier, or provide a little more insight, or be able to do it with them and not just put the full brunt and workload on somebody and like full delegation of the task, I think has really bred a really good environment in our businesses, because we have two different businesses, right? And they deal with a very different avatar, right? You're working with on the SDR whisperer side of things, a 20-year-old who maybe just recently got out of college, college and has a lot of different problems than, say, a person doing $6 million a year as a business, right? Two very different avatars. So treating each business with that understanding that they go through different trials and tribulations and the conversations that they have and the within each organization that we have. But myself being both, being the business owner, and I can teach and lead by example, as well as being an actual salesperson in my career for 10 years plus, and understanding the trials and tribulations of each avatar that we work with.
Now, I've used this lead by example quite a bit in my executive coaching. And I want to explain how it gets used, because it really is, like when leaders show up late to meetings, I guess I am explaining, I will ask him, if you're leading by example, what are you saying when you're late to meetings? And you're like, oh, I didn't realize. I didn't know that applied to me. And has there been any point where you have wrestled with leading people in an area where you didn't have experience? I don't know how much experience you have in finance or operations or, tax strategy. So you've got to lead and coach people through those things that you haven't done. Is that challenged you?
It was, and I'm always somebody who has at least tried something to the fullest extent. So, obviously there's a lot of agencies and outside vendors that companies use. And my always biggest piece of advice to myself is like, I'm going to try it to the best of my ability first. If I'm not competent in it, or it's going to take me a very long time to become competent in it, I'm going to hire that out. But I'm going to at least try to pave the way first. Maybe it's still a gravel road, and then I hire someone to pave it. But everything inside of our business, I've at least taken some swings at the plate with. And I know if that's an area of weakness or an area of strength. And whenever we bring an outside vendor in, like say our bookkeeper or our accountant, right? I'm like, hey, are you willing to, we could pay for it, but are you able to consult people inside of our business with your area of expertise? So come tax season, right? I think one of our managers, our sales managers, was having an issue with filing taxes. And I was like, hey, we'll pay for this. You can use our resources, if that kind of answered your question. So always being able to provide value and resources to everyone in the business based off of what the business is currently doing.
I just know that sometimes we are asked to lead others in domains where we're not experts. And I will tell you, as an executive coach, there are times when I get pulled into something. I'll give you an example. And this wasn't even my coaching experience, but something happened on one of the teams. Is an HR leader struggled with a girl who said that there was sexual harassment, but when it was described to 3 different people, they're like, that's not sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Like the way you're describing this is just him being nice and being friendly with you. And she was adamant that he crossed the line, and he was confused. She told the story to 3 people. They were confused. And I'd never been in that place before. My coach had never been in it. I'm like, how'd you handle it? And there's sometimes we get put into example in areas where we've never been able to do it before. Are you able to adapt in those cases when leading by example doesn't always work? Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is just honesty and transparency. Like, don't speak on things that you aren't 100% knowledgeable on, and definitely don't coach or provide feedback in areas that you don't feel 100% confident in, and like not pretending, right? Like, leading by example is to be somebody who works off of a high degree of pedigree, and like, don't say something that you're not confident in just to say it, I think is a big lesson. And like being okay with not knowing everything, because we are humans at the end of the day, and understanding that we have our strengths and our weaknesses, and leaning into both those strengths and those weaknesses. So if that's an area of weakness, be honest and transparent. Like, we haven't come across a situation. I'm going to try to find outside help or consultants, or reach out to some of my network and understand maybe how they've had to provide more value and become more knowledgeable, because this issue will probably arise in the future. So becoming or turning your weaknesses into strengths through being honest that you don't know what you don't know.
Now, Dylan's just talking about leading by example, about being transparent, and I agree with that. But there will be times when you are asked to lead when you have not been an expert in those areas, and I'm going to ask you to be curious. Ask questions, really connect with people and what they're doing. If you can be curious in an area where you're not able to lead by example, you will have a much better chance to connect with that person. Back to Dylan. I want to ask you a question about this. It plays in my head quite a bit, Dylan, about weaknesses.
Yeah.
I am a believer, when it came out, that we should follow our strengths. And in some areas that really works. If you're really good at sales, you should do more sales for the organization. If you're really good with numbers, do more numbers because other areas challenge you. But in leadership, I don't think we get to say that. I don't know what your opinion is, but if you have a weakness in leadership, like communication, like listening, or
Yeah.
you have to work on those things to be better at it. Do you see it differently?
No, I think I see it pretty eye to eye. And like, that's why what you do is valuable to businesses, right? Because you're able to always proponent of paying for knowledge and mentorship in the areas of weakness to be turn those weaknesses into strengths. So if I'm not good at something, I know that I'm not good at it. I'm going to find knowledge, read books, listen to podcasts, hire mentors, invest in programs, put myself in closer proximity to individuals who are smarter in that subject than I am to, create a better toolkit and tool set as a leader. And being okay with that, like putting the ego to the side is big.
Oh, that I agree with you there. We've been talking about leading by example. And if I step back up a level, it really is a way to build trust, right? Because if you've done it before, you can kind of be empathetic with people, you can really kind of connect with them, and you can help them find their way through it. Now you can take it too far. You can micromanagement when you've done it before, but when you're building trust as a leader, what are the things that you feel like play an important role in that with, leading by example with your team?
I think the biggest issue that I had was not holding everyone to the same degree that I hold myself to. So when you delegate a task, right, or you hire a new manager or somebody that's going to be owning something within your business, understanding that it's not going to be done to the same degree or same, level of detail that you would do it, and being okay with that and not judging others based on your own kind of evaluation of yourself was a big thing for me. So like an example, like I'm online, I'm always on. It's probably a good thing and also a pretty bad thing. I'm just always on and always available. So if a message comes in from a prospect at like 10 p.m. on a Saturday, I'm probably going to answer that. But I can't expect somebody on my team to also have that same level of psychosis in doing that, and like being stern with them, like, oh, why didn't you answer this message at 10 p.m. on a weekend? Like, that's not, I can't hold you to that. So being okay with people's ways of doing things within the business and not being so critical if it's not to the exact degree that you would have done it to.
It's a very good example.
Yeah.
Because I'm probably the same way, but not to the same degree. I will sit and let it wait on a Saturday night at 10. But I totally get what you're saying. If your standard of people is the same, or for others the same as that you have, you'll delegate less. You'll start pulling things back because it's not getting done the way you would do it. But if you have,
and you're constraining the business because you're not allowing it to be delegated and to grow.
We've been talking about building trust and leading by example. And I asked you about the principles. Is there anything else that you feel like plays a key role in your building trust with your team?
I think it's allowing yourself to trust in more situations. So putting people in a position where they can earn the trust of others and not kind of being that leader in all situations and allowing others to lead, right? In like team calls. So instead of you having to be that driving force and always being the main beacon of leadership, is essentially delegating leadership to others so they could also lead. Because, my biggest thing is that each individual and employee in your company likes to be managed in a different, unique way. The way you manage one employee is not the same way that you'd manage another employee. So actually generally understanding what is the best way to get the most out of this person, right? And like, what is your leadership style that you like to be led, or management style of how you like to be managed, and curtailing that to each employee so they feel listened to, they feel that you trust them and their abilities so they can then flourish with their own unique skill sets.
Dylan, as we wrap up today, I feel like a lot of leaders have been to inflection points. I share with you kind of one of the big ones in my life when I was running a business and it fell apart.
Yeah.
You may not have one that's that catastrophic, but is there a time that you can look back and looking at an inflection point as a leader that you now think differently than you did before about something?
Yeah. So a lot of my business success I can bring back to a weekend. So I invested in a coaching program called Wake Up Wealthy. They had a event, kind of like a Navy SEAL type event, where it was a physical training event, and then after you kind of broke yourself down physically, then it became more of like a leadership training. So it was called Evolve. I did that about 2 years ago, and I guess I didn't really truly see myself as like a beacon of leadership before I was able to help lead individuals in like a high stress situation like that, and like being the one that you didn't have to come in first. You wanted to make sure that everyone completed the task. And then we also had like at the end of the event, everyone was able to reflect, and everyone named me as somebody who was a leader that weekend. And it kind of instilled that trust and that like, I can do this type deal. So that was a very impactful weekend for me, and actually like organically leading. And I didn't really see it as leading. I was just helping others. But that event pretty much changed the trajectory of my life. It helped me create these businesses. It helped me be somebody in those businesses that people looked up to and assimilated to, and were willing to take a chance at a smaller company and maybe quit their job to join and work for us. But I think I can lead everything back to that event, where I really kind of broke down my barriers and really learned something about myself, and that I have this innate ability to lead others.
We host some similar events here,
Yeah.
not necessarily physical. We actually get you in a race car and let you race.
There you go.
It's very different, but there's some commonalities of racing a car fast around a racetrack and leading a company that's growing fast. And that's kind of, we bring those things together, but we also bring, 6 or 8 CEOs together, and it's certainly not a commercial here, but I get the fact there's power in doing things together. I really am going to end this on just a, acknowledgement of your ability to grow. Cause you said that was a couple of years ago, and you've probably been been at this entrepreneurship more than that.
Yeah.
But the ability to adapt and learn new things and evolve is a key trait of building trust as well. And so it just kind of comes full circle today, leading by example, building trust, all those things wrapped into what a great episode, Dylan. Thanks for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Gene.
Wow, what a great interview. I love talking about building trust. I love talking about leading by example. I love talking about how these things are connected together. And when you think about your own journey of leadership, I want you to be able to put in words what your principles are, who you are as a leader. And if you can describe that, you can use that inside your own culture building process. And all of those things happen because you're clear about who you are, what you stand for. And if you're unsure, if you're not evolving at the pace that you need to, you're feeling pressure, you're feeling distracted, you're feeling like you're not adding the value that you used to, then let's have a chat. I'd love to talk to you about what's going on in your business. It could be the leadership effectiveness evaluation that I mentioned earlier. It could be just having a good conversation with a coach to help you through a blind spot or help you through a limiting belief around your own leadership and growth of the organization. Happy to help you. Just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call today. Now, when you believe that you can grow to the next level, you want to make sure that you continue to move forward, continue to take action. You can listen to these calls, or you can reach out to me and I can help you. When you think of growth and think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, live with courage. We'll see you next time.